At 10:10 a.m., the courthouse became a locked coffin. The doors sealed automatically. Magnetic locks slammed into place. No one entered. No one left. Do-hoon didn't panic. Because he already knew how this trial was supposed to end. Kang Do-hoon sat in shackles, waiting for a verdict he already knew was bought. No deals left. No leverage. No control. Then the doors were thrown open. Heels struck marble, steady and fearless. His stomach dropped because he knew that sound. Maya Reed. The one person he had spent 3 years keeping away from his world. His wife walked in like she wasn't afraid of anyone in that room. Eyes forward. Past the gallery. Past the bar. Straight toward the witness stand. Do-hoon surged against his cuffs. No. Before the judge could speak, the alarm screamed. Code red. Hostile breach. All exits sealed. Red lights flooded the courtroom. The doors magnet-locked shut. People panicked. Marshals reached for radios. And through the chaos, Do-hoon saw his cousin's face change. Grief disappeared. Calculation took its place. That's when it hit him. Maya didn't walk into a courtroom. She walked into a kill box, to save him. And if Do-hoon had one choice left in his life, it was this. He would burn his entire empire to get her out alive. But the worst part was this. Do-hoon knew exactly who had arranged the attack. As the alarm screamed, Do-hoon understood exactly who had done this. 3 days earlier, he had already accepted the verdict because fighting back would expose the one person he had sworn to protect. His wife. The evidence was perfect. Too perfect. Which meant someone inside the organization had built it. Junho had framed him cleanly. Do-hoon could have fought. He had lawyers who would die for him. Accounts no one could trace. Men still loyal. He chose not to. Because fighting would drag Maya into the fire. And that was unacceptable. So he let the trial move forward. He let the empire collapse. He let the world believe he was guilty. Junho had grown up under his protection. Do-hoon had buried Junho's father. Paid for his education. Given him a place in the organization. And apparently, given him a reason to take everything. After Junho's father died, Do-hoon had raised him. Taught him patience. Discipline. Control. Junho learned something else. Speed. Expansion. Ruthlessness. The organization wanted growth. Junho wanted the throne. So he removed the obstacle. Do-hoon. And Do-hoon let it happen. Because exposing the real books would expose Maya. She was supposed to be in Switzerland. Safe. Gone from all of this. He had arranged everything himself. New passport. New identity. Money routed through channels even Junho couldn't see. He watched her board the plane. Or so he thought. What he didn't know was this. Maya Reed had never boarded the flight. For 6 months, Maya Reed had been in Seoul. Building something. Quietly. Patiently. And at 10:10 a.m., she walked into a courtroom with it. The alarm screamed. Red light flooded the marble. Junho's face changed. And Do-hoon understood. This wasn't chaos. Junho had not sent gunmen. He had sent witnesses. It was execution. He looked down at his shackled wrists. Then he looked at his thumb. Pain was a currency. Do-hoon had always known that. He had paid in it before, and he'd pay again. He pressed his thumb back against his palm and felt the joint resist. Then he pushed harder. The crack vanished beneath the noise of the panicking gallery. The marshal beside him didn't hear it. His lawyer had already dropped to the floor. Pain shot white-hot up Do-hoon's arm. He used it to pull his right hand free from the shackle in one slow, controlled movement. He was standing before anyone noticed. The nearest hitman was disguised as a court security guard. Position 6 rose back with a clean sight line to the witness stand. Do-hoon had clocked him the moment the red lights came on, the way he stood too still, the way his hand never moved far from his jacket. Amateur mistake. Real guards fidgeted. Do-hoon moved through the chaos with the kind of calm that only came from years of walking into rooms where everyone wanted to hurt him. He reached the man in 4 seconds. Neutralized him in 3 more. The gun disappeared inside Do-hoon's jacket before it ever cleared the holster. He turned toward Maya. She was still standing at the witness stand. Still holding the folder. Still completely unafraid. You were supposed to be in Switzerland. His voice came out low and controlled, but his eyes gave him away. They always did, around her. Maya didn't flinch. I was in a basement in Mapogu decoding your financial ledger. Switzerland was never happening. He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the back corridor as another round of screaming broke out near the main doors. 2 more men in guard uniforms were pushing through the panicking crowd, heads down, moving with purpose. Do-hoon counted exits without looking. 3 sealed. 1 partially blocked. The judge's chambers, old building, thick walls, 1 door that locked from the inside. He pushed Maya into the judge's chambers and locked the door behind them. Old walls. 1 desk. No real exit. No time. Maya set her folder on the desk and opened it without being asked. 47 transfers. Directly to Junho. It's clean, she said. I had help. But the evidence holds. Do-hoon stared at her. How long have you had this? He asked quietly. 6 months, she said. I've been building it since the day you told me to leave. And I already sent a partial copy to someone you don't control. While he sat in a holding cell preparing to die quietly, Maya had been building his defense from scratch in a borrowed basement with borrowed equipment and borrowed time. He should have been angry. He was angry. But underneath it, something else moved, something he hadn't felt since the night she first walked into his life and looked at him like he was a problem worth solving. You could have been killed, he said. Yes. Junho has people everywhere. If he had found out you were still in Seoul. He almost did. Twice. She said it simply, like a fact about the weather. I moved safe houses 4 times in 3 months. I changed phones every 2 weeks. I used your old communication codes, the ones from before you reorganized the network in 2021. She paused. I told you I was listening when you talked about work. Do-hoon sat down slowly on the edge of the judge's desk. In the emergency light, he saw the hard set of her jaw, the steadiness in her eyes, the posture of a woman who had been afraid for a very long time and had finally decided to stop. I need you to understand something, he said. She raised an eyebrow. I'm getting you out of this building alive. Whatever it takes. A fist hit the chamber door once. Then again. Then a 3rd time with something harder than a fist, a boot, or a ram, and the deadbolt rattled in its housing but held. Do-hoon crossed to Maya in 2 steps. In the low red light bleeding under the door, she tilted her head back to look at him, and he did something he hadn't planned to do. He pulled her close, 1 hand at the back of her head, and held her for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds was all he allowed himself. Then he stepped back and angled her phone light toward his neck. What are you doing? She asked. Showing you something. The beam caught the ink along his collarbone. Ink woven tight enough to hide something inside it. Maya leaned in. Her breath caught. She stared longer than she meant to. Most men promised protection. Do-hoon had carved it into his skin. Hidden inside the pattern, woven between the larger symbols like a secret tucked inside a sentence, were 2 characters that formed a single name. Her name. You had this done before we got married, she said. It wasn't a question. 3 months after I met you, he confirmed. I knew then. Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she straightened, clicked off the phone light, and picked up her folder. Then you'd better make sure we both get out of here, she said. Because I am not letting you die with my name on your skin. The door frame splintered. The door blew inward and the first man through it got a law book to the face. Not a small one. Maya had pulled the thickest volume from the nearest shelf the moment the frame started cracking, and she swung it with both hands and the full weight of her body behind it. The impact was solid and loud, and the man dropped without dignity onto the judge's carpet. Do-hoon handled the second one. It was fast and quiet. The third man stopped in the doorway when he saw his two colleagues on the floor and Do-hoon standing over them with a calm that was somehow more frightening than rage. Smart decision. He ran. There'll be more, Do-hoon said, pulling Maya toward the back of the chambers. He pushed aside a row of hanging robes to reveal a narrow service door, older than the rest of the building. Maya looked at it. How did you know that was there? I had the building plan studied 6 months ago. He held the door open. When I was still considering fighting the charges. She walked through. What changed your mind? You were still in Seoul. I couldn't risk the trial dragging on. He followed her into the dark stairwell, letting the door fall shut behind them. I thought the faster I accepted the sentence, the faster you'd be safe. Halfway down the stairs, voices echoed above them. 2 men. Moving fast. Searching. Do-hoon pulled Maya against the wall and covered her mouth with his hand. Boots pounded down the upper steps. They stopped 1 flight above. A radio crackled. Stairwell clear. The footsteps faded. Do-hoon finally let her breathe again. Maya's voice floated up from below him on the stairs. That's the most loving and most stupid thing I've ever heard. Do-hoon moved ahead of Maya, his hand back against her arm to control their pace. No phone light here. The emergency reds didn't reach this deep, and darkness was their ally for exactly as long as they could use it before it became a liability. Left at the bottom, he said quietly. There's a tunnel to the records building next door. Old door. Weak chain. And you have something to break a chain with? He said nothing. You don't have anything to break a chain with, she said. I have a gun. You're going to shoot a chain in a stone tunnel. It works in the movies. Maya made a sound in the dark that was almost a laugh, a short, reluctant exhale that she seemed to regret immediately. This is not the time for you to develop a sense of humor. I've always had one. You were just never in enough danger to see it. They reached the bottom and moved left into a narrow corridor. The chain looked solid, but one rusted link gave way immediately. Do-hoon had prepared this exit months ago. He unwrapped it from the handle and pushed the door open. The records building was dark, silent, and abandoned. Rows of filing cabinets boxed them in as they moved. Maya stopped walking. I need to tell you something, she said. Do-hoon kept his eyes on the far exit. Tell me while we move. I knew. She said it flat and clear, the way she said things when she had decided they needed to be said regardless of timing. About the organization. About what you ran. About Incheon and the network and what Iron Fist actually meant. He stopped. I knew what you were, she said quietly. Not the details. But enough. Do-hoon turned to look at her. You never said anything. Neither did you. The weight of that sat between them in the dusty dark. I was going to leave, she admitted. The night I figured it out, I packed a bag. I sat on the edge of the bed for 2 hours. She met his eyes. And then you came home looking exhausted in a way you never let anyone see. You sat on the kitchen floor and ate leftover rice straight from the container. And I thought, this man is dangerous, but he's still a man. She picked up her folder and walked toward the exit. I unpacked the bag, she said. And then I started paying closer attention. The exit from the records building fed into a basement loading dock, concrete floor, strip lighting, the smell of diesel and old cardboard. A good exit. Almost. Do-hoon heard the radio crackle before he saw the marshal. Agent Cho stood near the loading bay door, speaking low into his earpiece. One listen was enough. Wrong frequency. Not federal. He pulled Maya back behind a row of shelving. The lead marshal, he said quietly. He's compromised. Maya went still. How do you know? Wrong frequency. Wrong body language. He's not reporting a security situation. He's reporting our location. She processed this without visible panic, which was one of the many things about her that continued to catch him off guard. So our exit is being watched. Our exit is a trap. Agent Cho turned slightly, scanning the space. Do-hoon tracked the sweep of his eyes and calculated the blind spot, 7 seconds between each pass if the agent kept his current rhythm. There's a fire panel on the far wall, Maya said, her voice barely above breath. If someone activated the suppression system in this zone, the dock doors would have to open manually. Do-hoon looked at her. Of course she knew the building codes. Tell me where the panel is, he said. Agent Cho spun toward the sudden hiss of the suppression system releasing, and in the 4 seconds his attention was on the ceiling, Do-hoon crossed the space between them. It wasn't violent. It was efficient, a controlled takedown, the agent's radio skidding across the concrete, Do-hoon's knee on his back with exactly enough pressure to communicate that resistance was a poor idea. Junho's paying you, Do-hoon said. Not a question. Cho said nothing. Nod once if you want to walk out of this building with your career intact. Do-hoon leaned slightly. Because I have 47 documented transactions that will either bury my cousin or bury everyone connected to him, and right now you're connected. A single, reluctant nod. Good. Do-hoon stood. Cuff yourself to the shelf. Someone will find you in 20 minutes when this is over. Maya was already at the manual release for the dock door, pulling the handle with both hands until the heavy roll-up groaned open 6 inches, enough for light, enough for air, not enough for what came next. 3 shadows moved across the light strip. Boots on concrete outside. Patient, positioned. Waiting. The dock was covered. That wasn't Junho's style. He preferred guarantees. Do-hoon did the math quickly. 1 exit compromised. 1 marshal neutralized. Junho's people above and below and outside. The evidence on Maya's folder and a digital file she had apparently not yet transmitted. The data, he said. You haven't sent it yet. I needed a secure connection. The courthouse Wi-Fi is locked down. He almost smiled. Almost. I know someone who can help with that. Do-hoon led her through the filing rows into a maintenance corridor beside the loading dock. Old building. Old service paths. Another way through. Maya moved without complaint. No stumbling, no hesitation. She had her folder under one arm and her phone in her free hand, and she matched his pace with the focus of someone who had already decided how this day was going to end. Your knowledge of this building is extremely specific, she said. I own 3 law firms. I know the building. You own 3 law firms? Legally. Do-hoon. 2 of them are clean. The corridor opened into a utility room with exposed pipe and a fuse board that took up an entire wall. Sitting on an overturned equipment box, eating chips from a foil bag with the calm of a man who had seen considerably worse days, was a small, wiry figure in a building maintenance uniform. Park Seo-jin. 28 years old. Do-hoon's best technical operative and, as of 6 months ago, officially retired. He looked up without surprise. Took you long enough, Seo-jin said, crumpling the chip bag. He held up a portable router the size of a thick wallet. Military-grade encrypted connection. Bounced through 4 countries. He glanced at Maya. You must be the professor. The ledger is clean work. But once we go live, everyone watching the courthouse grid will see the spike. Maya looked at Do-hoon. You had backup. I had 1 backup, he said. I'm not completely unprepared. Seo-jin set up the connection in under 2 minutes. Maya transferred the files with the focus of someone who had been preparing for this exact moment for 6 months. The upload bar moved in steady increments on the small screen. 11%. The lights flickered once above them. Someone was cutting power to sections of the building. Junho will know the moment this hits the server, Do-hoon said. He'll know we're still alive, Maya replied. He already suspects, Seo-jin said, not looking up from his secondary monitor. His men have been sweeping the building in a grid pattern for the last 18 minutes. They're working inward from the perimeter. He tapped the screen. They'll reach this corridor in approximately 9 minutes. 22%. Seo-jin glanced at the door. They're sweeping with thermal goggles now. Maya's hand was steady on the keyboard. She didn't look at the upload bar. She was watching the door. We need to slow them down, Do-hoon said. Seo-jin reached under the equipment box and produced a small device the size of a television remote. The courthouse has a secondary sprinkler grid on the upper 2 floors. If I activate it now, their thermal goggles become useless. Hot water vapor will ruin the read. Do-hoon nodded once. Seo-jin pressed the trigger. Somewhere above them, the old pipes groaned to life. Water began to fall through 2 floors of a building that had stood for 100 years. 38%. A shadow moved under the door. Someone outside testing the handle. 9 minutes suddenly felt like a very long time. They came through the corridor door at the 51% mark. 3 men. Moving fast, their thermal goggles pushed up to their foreheads now, useless in the water vapor, just as Seo-jin had calculated. They had their eyes and their training and nothing else, and for a half-second Do-hoon saw them process the room, the equipment, the wiring, the upload bar on the small screen, Maya's fingers still on the keyboard. Then they saw him standing between them and her. The first man was confident. That was his mistake. The second man was more careful, hung back, looked for angles. Do-hoon respected that. He also didn't let it change the outcome. The third man made a move toward Maya and found Seo-jin between them, which seemed to surprise him right up until it shouldn't have. It was over in seconds. Do-hoon straightened, breathing controlled, jacket ruined. 67%. You're bleeding, Maya said without looking up from the screen. It's not mine. Some of it is. He looked down. She was right about that. A cut across his left forearm, clean, not deep, nothing that would slow him. He wrapped his hand around it and kept his eyes on the door. It was deeper than he let her see. 78%. How many more? He asked Seo-jin. At least 4. Maybe 6. Seo-jin glanced at the screen. And Junho himself just entered the building. 83%. Do-hoon moved to the door and pressed his back against the wall beside it. The corridor outside was quiet in the way that meant people were being careful rather than absent. He'll come himself, Do-hoon said. He always did. Junho couldn't trust the important things to other people. It's what made him dangerous and what always made him careless at the end. You know him that well? Maya asked. I raised him. After his father died, I brought him up through the organization. Taught him everything. Do-hoon's jaw tightened. He was like a brother to me. The upload bar ticked forward. 88%. Seo-jin had gone quiet, the focused, economical silence of someone monitoring 3 screens at once and processing information faster than he could speak it. His fingers moved in small adjustments. His eyes didn't blink enough. They've split, he said finally. 2 coming from the east corridor. Junho and 1 other from the west. He's cutting off the angle to the main stairwell. Seo-jin's voice tightened. He knows where we are. 92%. Do-hoon looked at Maya's back, the straight line of her spine, the set of her shoulders, the complete absence of trembling in her hands even now. 6 months of hiding, of building something in a basement that could pull a man back from the edge of a life sentence, and she hadn't broken once. 96%. Footsteps in the west corridor. Getting closer. 98. The door opened at 99%. Junho stepped through it like a man who had rehearsed the moment. Jacket straight. Expression composed. His eyes went to Maya first. Not Do-hoon. Junho had always understood leverage. The faintest pull of something that might have been regret at the corner of his mouth. He was 41 years old and looked like Do-hoon's family. He had one man with him. The man had a gun already drawn. Junho's eyes moved from Do-hoon to Maya to the screen. 99%, he said quietly. You were always thorough. I should have moved faster. You should have, Do-hoon agreed. You always waited too long on the things that mattered. Junho's expression shifted. Something genuine moved under the composure, not quite guilt, but the shape of it. This wasn't personal, Hyung. You understand that. The organization needed a new direction. You were too slow, too careful, too human? Do-hoon said. You framed me for murder, Do-hoon continued. You arranged to have my wife killed in a building full of witnesses. You bought a federal marshal and placed assassins in a courthouse. His voice didn't rise. Tell me which part of that wasn't personal. Junho looked at the floor for 1/2 second. You really thought I wouldn't check the backup routes? Junho said quietly. That was the tell. It always had been. Every time Junho was about to do something he didn't fully believe in, he looked at the floor. His man raised the gun toward Maya. Do-hoon was already moving. He put himself between the gun and Maya without thinking. That was the truth of it, no calculation, no strategy, just the body doing what it had already decided long before the mind caught up. The gun fired. Do-hoon didn't think. He moved. Then the pain hit. Maya didn't scream. She grabbed his jacket with both hands and held him upright. Later she would remember thinking only one thing. Not here. Not like this. Do-hoon felt it catch him high on the left side, his shoulder, outside the bone, burning clean through muscle. He staggered one step but didn't go down. He had spent 3 years carefully keeping Maya separate from his world. 3 years of half-answers and changed subjects and loving her in the spaces between the truth. He had believed that what she didn't know would keep her safe. What she didn't know had almost gotten her killed. What she did know had apparently saved his life. He heard Maya behind him, not a scream, just a sharp exhale, the sound of someone absorbing something terrible without letting it stop them. Then he heard a single clear sound that changed everything. A single chime. 100%. Upload complete. In the half-second that Junho's eyes moved to the screen, just 1/2 second, involuntary, Seo-jin moved. The man with the gun went down hard and stayed down. Junho stood without cover. Do-hoon straightened, his left arm hanging wrong, blood soaking his sleeve in a dark, spreading bloom. He looked at his cousin across 4 feet of the utility room and the full length of everything they had ever been to each other. It's over, Do-hoon said. Junho didn't run. Didn't reach for a weapon. Just stood there with his hands at his sides and his composure finally, completely gone, and for one moment he looked exactly like the 17-year-old boy Do-hoon had once pulled out of a bad situation in Itaewon and decided to protect. Maya sent the confirmation message herself, one encrypted line to a contact with the right clearance. Seo-jin zip-tied Junho's wrists with the calm efficiency of a man completing a routine task. Junho didn't resist. The fight had gone out of him the moment the upload bar hit 100. Do-hoon sat on the equipment box pressing his jacket against his shoulder. The bleeding was controlled. The pain was manageable. Maya crouched in front of him. She didn't ask how he was. She already knew. She put her hand against his jaw and made him look at her, and what passed between them in that moment didn't need words, had never needed words, really, even when words were all they had used to keep distance between them. The data is sent, she said. I know. Junho is secured. I know. You have a bullet wound. I noticed. Stay awake, she said quietly. She pressed her forehead against his for exactly 3 seconds. The same length of time he had held her in the judge's chambers. He wondered if she had counted. From the floors above them, through the stone and the steel and the old bones of the building, they heard a new sound, heavy, organized, definitive. Swap boots on marble. The cavalry had arrived. The problem with cavalry was that it arrived with questions. Do-hoon stood in the utility room doorway as a tactical unit came in, 12 agents in full gear, weapons raised. The lead agent's eyes landed on Do-hoon's bloody sleeve, the unconscious man on the floor, Jun-ho zip-tied to exposed piping, and Seo-jin. Hands, the lead agent said. I need medical, Do-hoon replied. Hands first. Maya stepped forward and flashed her official credential. The lead agent looked at it. Looked at her. Looked at Do-hoon. Kong Do-hoon, the lead agent said flatly. You are still a defendant in an active trial. Nothing here changes that. The trial has new evidence, Maya said. 47 documented transactions linking Junho to the murder. The data was transmitted to Agent Shin at the Seoul field office 11 minutes ago. You can confirm with her directly. Radios crackled. Conversations happened in clipped, coded bursts that Do-hoon only partially followed. His shoulder was beginning to make its opinion known more forcefully. The lead agent lowered his weapon, not much. We need everyone upstairs, he said finally. The trial is reconvening. Do-hoon buttoned what remained of his jacket over his shoulder. Maya picked up her folder, still intact, not a page out of place. They walked back upstairs together. Broken glass had been swept aside. The chairs were upright again. The gallery was half empty, civilians evacuated, replaced by agents and officers and people with credentials and serious expressions. The judge's expression gave nothing away. Do-hoon walked through the doors with Maya at his side and an armed escort behind him and a bullet wound under his jacket, and the room went absolutely still. He moved to the defendant's table. His lawyer stared at him. Do-hoon sat down. Across the room, Junho was brought in separately, wrists cuffed in front of him now, flanked by 2 federal agents. He did not look at Do-hoon. Maya took the witness stand. The judge gavelled once. Sharp, definitive, a sound that meant the world was being called back to order. We are resuming proceedings, she said. Ms. Reed. You were sworn in before the disruption. That oath stands. You may begin. Maya opened her folder. She spoke without notes. She walked the jury through the ledger transactions with the clarity of a professor. She made the numbers feel like a confession. She named Junho directly. Do-hoon watched the jury. He watched them the way he used to watch rooms, looking for the moment when the air changed. It changed at minute 14. The jury was out for 40 minutes. Do-hoon spent them in a medical room on the 3rd floor while a courthouse physician addressed his shoulder efficiently and without questions. Maya sat in the chair beside him. She had not left his side since the utility room. Seo-jin was released within 20 minutes. Junho had been taken somewhere else entirely. When the knock came on the medical room door, Do-hoon was standing, jacket back on, arm in a sling he planned to discard within the hour. The bailiff in the doorway looked at him with an expression that gave nothing away, but there was something in the set of his shoulders. They're ready, the bailiff said. The courtroom had filled again. Word traveled fast inside sealed buildings. The gallery was standing room, faces turned toward the jury box with the held-breath attention of people who understood they were watching something that didn't happen often. The jury foreman stood. Do-hoon felt Maya's hand find his under the table. He turned his palm up and held it. On the charge of murder in the 1st degree, the foreman said, we the jury find the defendant. The courtroom held its breath. Not guilty. The room released. Junho, seated across the aisle between his new escorts, was formally charged on 17 counts before the echo of the verdict had finished moving through the marble walls. Do-hoon sat very still and felt something inside him, something that had been clenched for 3 years. Something inside him unclenched. He handed the ring to Seojin outside the courthouse steps. Not ceremony. No speech. Run it clean, Do-hoon said. Seojin nodded once and pocketed the ring. The empire was finished. Maya was waiting at the bottom of the steps, her folder finally closed, her jacket finally unbuttoned, looking out at Seoul's midday light with the expression of someone who had been underground for a long time and was relearning what daylight felt like. Do-hoon stood beside her. It's over, he said. The empire is, she replied. Now comes the part where I stop lying to you, he said. She turned to look at him. He met her eyes without the deflection he had spent 3 years perfecting. That part too, he said. No more shadows. Maya studied him for a long moment with the particular attention of a woman who had a PhD in reading things that didn't want to be read. Then she took his good hand in both of hers. Good, she said simply. Let's go home. 1 month later, the Alps were quiet. No sirens. No gunfire. At exactly 10:10 a.m., Maya stepped onto the porch and handed him a cup of coffee. No alarms, she said. Do-hoon looked out across the valley. For the first time in 12 years, there was nothing left to survive. Only peace. His phone buzzed once on the table behind him. He didn't turn around. She leaned her head against him. He put his arm around her, and the clock inside ticked past 10:10. For the first time in 12 years, Kang Do-hoon had nowhere to be and nothing to protect against. He had only this. For now, it was enough. Did Maya save him? Or had she always been the only person who could change him? And if you were in her place, would you have walked into that courtroom? Or stayed hidden and let the empire burn?